Mafia seems like a series that no one has really played. To be honest, I don't know anybody that has actually played the first two games. I know a few people that have played the third one, and I myself have played a few hours of the third one, and I enjoyed the world and a bit of the story, but the gameplay just got so repetitive. So when I heard about Mafia Definitive Edition being released, I was actually quite intrigued because it was a game that I always wanted to play but never really got the chance to. But now it's finally on modern consoles, and I played it on PS4 through PS Plus Premium, which is great because that saved me like €40 because that game rarely seems to be on sale, especially physically. So I was expecting something like GTA, but what I got was actually something completely different, and it blew me away and took me by surprise. So no more farting around, let's get into this 2020 review of Mafia Definitive Edition.
That hurts.
Straight away, I was hooked on the setting. It's set in 1930s America during the Prohibition era, during the Depression. So, to be honest, I've never actually played a game during that time, so it was a breath of fresh air. You play as Tommy Angelo, and the story is told through him telling stories to a detective because he's a rat. And we all know what the Mafia does with rats, so I'm sure Tommy Angelo was very scared. And throughout the story, there are a few characters to mention. There's the Don, who realistically is just kind of there. He doesn't really add much or take away much to the story. But then his two partners in crime, Sam and Paulie, are probably the most diverse and nuanced characters in the story. While I don't want to get into spoilers, both of their stories are tragic, and I really like their arcs, and they're delivered really well, and by the end you actually kind of sympathize with them, even though they're the scum of the earth that are killing people, robbing people, and taking everyone's money. Look, it's a pretty cliche story. It is a mob game, so you know you're gonna have certain things, you know, like Tommy guns and walking in, shooting up restaurants and extortion and robbing cars and stuff. But I think where the game excels is through its mission variety. But regardless, the game still excels in its story. Going into this, I was expecting something a bit better than the PS2 era GTA stories, but in fact I would say it's on par with something like Uncharted 1. Now, Uncharted 1 has its problems, but it was a great start for an amazing franchise. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that Mafia Definitive Edition actually has just as good a story as Uncharted. Now, I don't know how it unfolds in Mafia 2 and Mafia 3, but the story in the first one is definitely a highlight, so that's what I'd be playing this game for, because when it comes into the gameplay, that's where the game kind of starts to fall off a bit.
We gotta roll now! Go!
So this is where the game seems a bit torn for me. So in its design, it's designed kind of like GTA, but its execution is more like something like Uncharted. So there's this big open world that you can drive around, and you start a mission like any other GTA game, and then you have to drive from point A to B, and then, you know, you might have to shoot up a brothel or, you know, shake down some people. But other than that, the world is absolutely useless. There is nothing in it. There's no side objectives. There's a few cars to find or something, but I mean, that's not very interesting. And the world is quite large, and it's beautifully realized, so it is a shame that there's not much to do in it. While GTA games do have great stories, I'd rather them just be delivered in missions where I don't have to drive around. So this game is very conflicted. It's like it wanted to be a GTA game with the open world and driving from mission to mission, but then its structure is more like Uncharted, so driving around is just needless filler. So if they took the need to feel like a GTA game out, I think this game would have been like easily like twice as good, and they probably could have added in maybe 3 or 4 more missions. Instead of spending the time developing this massive world that's kind of empty, they could have put that into a few more missions. And as I said, like, the missions is where this game excels. So to start with the missions, I think part of the reason why they feel so good is because the world itself is beautiful. And while I wasn't around in 1930s America, it does feel like it is authentic. And the missions take place all around the map. So sometimes you have to go out of the city into the wilderness and, you know, find someone in like a gas station miles away. I'm even calling it a gas station, even though I'm Irish, we call it petrol stations. So when it comes to all the other locations, they're just so well made that just existing in them was really fun. And while the missions are similar to other GTA style missions, there's a few standard ones that really stick with me. Like, I beat this game a week ago and I can still remember them. So there's one set around this big car race, and you have to sabotage another person's vehicle, and then you actually take part in the race, which I thought was really cool. It felt like a proper mission. I feel like in other games, you would have either done one or the other. You either sabotage the car and then watch the race as a cutscene, or you watch them sabotage the car and then took part in the race, but instead it feels like it all comes together into one big mission. And there's another one, and I'll keep the details light, but basically you go into this gentleman's club and you have to just go in, you have to find someone, and then it turns into an all-out brawl and you're running through shooting and you have to blow the place up. And that mission was just really, really fun. Again, the location felt very real, and then the action was nice. Now, in speaking of the action, the gameplay is just like, look, it's completely serviceable. It doesn't have the cool animations that a Rockstar game would have, but it also does feel a bit better. It feels more fluid, where Rockstar games are more methodical. This one kind of feels more like a game. Now, it is on the slow side, and the shooting is fine. The gun variety is a bit eh. And the driving feels good as well. Like, there's nothing really to complain about, but there's really nothing to talk about either. So, to be honest, I wouldn't really be coming to this for a gameplay experience. As I said, the mission variety is nice, and there are some standout missions. And it's all just further reinforced by really great voice acting and good writing too. But then the gameplay itself is just like, look, it's completely passable. It does the job, but there's nothing to talk about other than that. I think as a package, this Mafia Definitive Edition, I think the retail price is €40 or $40. So at that price point, you are getting a short game, but I really enjoyed it. Like, to be honest, I was hooked on it. And I beat it in 2 days. Now, granted, I was sick and I was on the couch, but I beat it in 2 days. So that goes to show that the story did really hook me. Now, gladly, the game feels more like Uncharted than GTA. Yes, it has the stupid driving part, but once you get into the missions, it's like Uncharted. And that works out way better for me as someone who isn't a massive fan of Rockstar games. All I say is that I'm glad that I finally played this game. It gets the Adzi Gaming seal of approval. It's on PS Plus Premium as well, so if you're subscribed to that, then you won't have to buy it. So it's definitely worth a download there. It's a great experience, and at €40, I wouldn't feel stung by it, but others might, as the game is quite short. So just keep an eye on a sale. You might find it cheap physically as well. You can also buy a Mafia Trilogy bundle where you might find the game a bit cheaper. So just keep your eye out on it. But there we have Mafia Definitive Edition. I really liked it. What do you think about the game? Have you played it before? And also, have you played the original? Because I'd love to know what the difference is like between the original and the Definitive Edition. Did they change much, or, you know, because I know there's a lot of purists out there. But I really appreciate you watching. Join the Discord down below. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe, like the video, do all that stuff. I'm finally back. I had COVID for a week, but I'm getting back into the swing of things. So thank you. I'll see you all on the next video.